Hello everyone, today's poem is Chen Feng, 东门之枌, a Chen Wind from the Book of Songs. This is the second poem in Chen Wind, and it's quite a typical and a simple state winds. Something about the ancestors, their praying, their sacrifice to their ancestors, either or a funeral, something about a funeral. Anyhow, the general explanation explained this poem as a young lady and a young boy. They are dancing together and they are dating each other without the code of conduct, go beyond of the code of conduct. So it's a little bit blaming poem, blaming to those boys and girls who doesn't follow the code of conduct. The dating, there's no dating in those days, so the marriage should be conducted by the code of conduct, 周礼. And this poem described a very hot and very lovely situation. The girl, the boy, the young boy and young girls, they are dancing in the some of the very wild place, and maybe their behavior goes wild as well. So it's a blaming poem in the general idea, but anyhow, I don't totally disagree with the general explanation. This is a very simple and typical state wind. It's about the praying, the sacrifice to their ancestors, either something about a funeral. Let's see. Now let's look at the poem. 东门之枌, 宛丘之栩. The first sentence is also the title of this poem, 东门之枌. There are trees so called as fen outside of our east gate, the east city gate, and that was the tree of Xu from Wanqiu, the hill of Wan. So the first pair of sentences in the surface is telling something, two type of trees. One type of tree was so called as fen. It was outside of the east gate. And there's also another type of tree so called as xu, and which was from the hill of Wan. So in the first Chen Wind poem, we know the hill of Wan, Wanqiu, is a very, very famous historical site, even in the Chinese history. The first Chinese, Fuxi, he was buried at this hill of Wan, and he made this small hill as his capital as well. And some 1,000 years later, in the Zhou dynasty, which was the time of the Book of Songs time, when the poet was writing here, so that was 1,000 years after the first Chinese, Fuxi. So the people of Chen State, they should be very proud of this historical site, hill of Wan, Wanqiu, and no wonder they mentioned in the first and the second poem in the Chen Wind. But today, nobody has any idea what type of these two trees it was, the tree of fen, the tree of xu. But if we think from another angle, if we treat the two characters, the two trees, from the structure, it's sort of the trees, but nobody know what it is through the Chinese history. But if we treat these two characters as a loan words, a borrowed character by its sound, it makes sense at once. So, 坟 share the same sound of tomb, and 许 share almost same sound as 续. 续 means to watch, to assist. So if with these loan words, the first pair of sentences is quite simple. The tomb outside of our east city gate, it was the assistant of this hill of Wan. So here, the hill of Wan actually is an alternative name to the state of Chen state. So let me make it more clearly. The person or the family who was buried outside of our east gate, his family, he was the assistant of our Chen state. And the second pair of sentences makes sense at once. Let's see the second pair of sentences. 子仲之子，婆娑其下. It was the sons of 子仲 who was dancing, who was waving under it, under which under the tomb, because the key words, the subject is the tomb outside of our east gate, and this family, that guy who was buried there, was a key person in this state. He was sort of the premier minister, and he was the key assistant to this state. And in the second pair of sentence, the person who was buried there was pointed out. His name is子仲, and his sons was waving under the tomb or outside of the east gate. So it's a sort of the funeral, or could be a sacrifice praying after the funeral. The Chinese people, even today, we went to the cemetery to pray, to sacrifice to our ancestors. And not to say some 3,000 years ago in the Zhou dynasty, maybe they go to the cemetery, go to visit their ancestors several times in a year. So in the first paragraph, it tells us there are some of the events, either a sacrifice, either a funeral was ongoing outside of the east city gate, at the down the tomb of the Zizhong. So Zizhong was who was buried there, or who would be buried there, and the something very funny or questioning is why his sons was waving there. 婆娑 is a word still used quite popular today. So normally it used the branch of the trees was waving, or someone, a girl was dancing with a manner very nicely, whirling, waving. So when we read the poem, the Book of Songs, the poems in the Book of Songs, we know this is the very origin place, how these words, the double syllable words, came from. 婆娑, so it's a
叠韵词
it shares the same rhyme. 婆, the rhyme is o, and 娑, the rhyme is o as well. So you cannot separate the two characters to mean something. So these two characters should be together, and it's a concrete word. The first paragraph also confirmed the commentary from the prince of Wu Jizha. He said, the Chen Wind is of no lord, which means the poems in the Chen Wind, it doesn't reflect or it's related with the state lord. So how it confirmed the commentary from the Prince of Wu? Because the first and second sentence together. The first sentence said, this tomb buried our Premier Minister, right? So the Premier Minister is a senior officer, and the state lord is not the state lord. And in the second pair of sentence, 子仲之子, it's double confirmed that this guy never could be a state lord, because 子仲, see his name, he was the second brother in the family. Even he was from the state lord family, and he is the second son of this family. He cannot be the state lord. The state lord should always be the first son. So these two sentences double confirmed the commentary from the prince of Wu state. There is no lord, because this poem is about someone, a senior officer, rather than a state lord. And in a decent state lord, most of the poems, especially the first, the second, the third poems in the state winds, should be about state lord. So from this we can see that the Chen state, it's not we can see that the prince of Wu state, he forecast that the Chen state won't last for long, because the state winds reflect the true status of a state, and the poems of the Chen Wind reflected that they don't care about their state lord, or the state lord has no power. So it's either way. Okay, let's go to the second paragraph. 古旦于街，南方之原. In this lucky, nice day, we all signs, because it's a very sad moment, right? Everybody signs. We lost a good guy, we lost a very nice person, we lost a senior officer today. And we are at the plateau in the south. Why in the south? Because the tomb was in the north, and in the Chinese way, the junior people would be in the southern directions, and the senior people, the state lord, the king, would at the northern side. So the state lord, the king, facing the south direction. 面南. So in Chinese, when we say 面南, it's a very delicate word for the king, for the state lord. They go up to their throne and they face to the south direction, and he make his ruling over all the country. So that's it means. And in this second paragraph, he pointed out very clearly 南方之原. It shows that even this family was not the state lord family, but they started to think about to ruling this place as the state lord. From this person buried in the tomb outside of the east gate. So it's all the implications. Okay, let's continue. 不绩其麻，市也婆娑. So they don't make up the hemp as a rope. 绩 refers to the action to make the hemp as a rope. So, which means it has so many threads flying like something like this picture. So it's waving. All the tiny thread of the hemp is flying in the wind. And 市也婆娑, so it makes it more clearly what does the 婆娑 means. It's referring to those tiny thread made of the hemp is flying. 市 is a long word as well, so it means this. This is what is waving and whirling. So this is a very typical Chinese funeral, 披麻戴孝. So whenever you saw the term 麻 hemp, which means hemp, or something of white, is almost telling you it's something about funeral. So far in the second paragraph, we know it's a funeral, and those sons of Zizhong, they wearing the garment or the clothing made of the hemp, and it's a very rough clothing. All the threads has so many threads. It's not well sewed, so it's like so many little tiny threads flying. Okay, the third paragraph. 穀旦于逝，越以鬃迈. In this lucky nice day, this guy was going away. 逝 has two meanings: going away or someone passed away. And in this poem, it's not a passed away. This guy should have been passed away for days. And this day, this nice lucky morning, is the day of the funeral. It's also a kind of going away, because the coffin, the dead would be buried under the ground forever. So the people still alive will never see him again. 越以鬃迈, so with all his bronze vessels, he went far, far away. So that's the funeral. They pull over the huge coffin from the ancestor temple in town, and in this case, go out of the east gate to his cemetery. and the zong is the bronze vessel, which is all the sacrifice buried with the dead. 视尔如荍，以我握椒. So I have a huge argument for the last sentence. By the character, if we read the two characters, we should read like this: 视尔如荍，以我握书. And shou very likely is quite similar to the sound of shu. So you see all these characters. So it all refers to the grains. And we have another poem in Xiao Ya Xiao Wan. It has all a quite similar sentence. 握粟出卜. So su, it sounds a little different than the two characters in this poem, shu, but in the ancient time they could be very similar sound. More important, all those characters listed here refers to the same things, the grains, the crops. Su particular refers to the grains without shell, and shu refers to the soybean particularly, and the shu is the general term for crops, for grains. So the crops, grains, is fundamental for human beings in the man side of the Zhou people. And we can see that in this poem as well.穀旦, in the second and third paragraph. Gu is the general terms for crops. And in this poem, and in a lot of cases, it doesn't use its original meaning, the crops, the food. It's used adopt the meaning of lucky. So in this poem, 谷旦 doesn't mean the grain morning. It means nothing. It makes no sense. 谷旦 here means a morning of lucky, a morning with fortunate, because the day of the funeral is a day by a fortune teller. So the Zhou people, when they are going to do a funeral, they ask the fortune teller to decide if it's a lucky day or not. So here it points out it's a very lucky day per the code of conduct, per the fortune tellers. So if we know the mindset of the Zhou people, we know that the grains, the crops, is fundamental. It's fortune to the Zhou people. And with this mindset, let's review the last pair of sentences again, and we know it immediately. 视尔如荑，以我握书. So I treat you as my fortune. You, who are you here? The passed away person,子仲, right? The poet should be one of his sons. So he was writing a condolence poem to his father, Zizhong. So the son take his passed away father as the fortune, and he gave us all those grains in our hand. It was him gave all those grains to our hand. 以我握书. So the grains here means the fortune. the assets. So that's the way the Zhou society made of the code of conduct. The lord, the senior officers, a junior lord, and the state lord, and there could be even minor lord. No matter how junior lord, state lord, or minor lord they were, they are the landlord, big or small, right? And when they passed away, they left all those assets, the land, the farming field, to his sons. So that's the social rules. That's the code of conduct. So that's also the fundamental reason the Zhou people pay such a respect to their ancestors, because they know all their assets is from their ancestors. Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.